Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a look at this Alabama Crimson Tide program and talking about 5 reasons we still think this Alabama team can win a national championship in 2023. And I get, as much as anyone else, like this is a team that we've probably had the most questions about of an Alabama team heading into a season in a very long time. But I feel like a lot of people are writing this program and this team off when you take a look at this depth chart and this roster and how they've recruited the last couple of years. This is still one of the best teams in college football. It's coached by one of the best coaches we've ever seen to do it, and it's still a national championship.
Still Alabama. That's what people still got to remember.
We're still talking about Alabama here. Now, before we get into it again, just want to say thank you to you guys. This has been a blast the offseason, whether we're talking recruiting, whether we're talking the transfer portal. The support from you guys truly has been incredible. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And then Bama fans, let us know in the comment section what you guys think, maybe some other reasons why this Alabama team can win a national title. And without further ado, Dale, I want to kick it off to our first reason, and that's the change at coordinators. Dale, I know you are passionate about this. Tell us a little bit about how you're feeling about the new coordinators in Tuscaloosa.
I mean, I think that was like a historically bad performance from 2 coordinators. And I know neither of them technically got fired, but I'm not convinced it wasn't Nick Saban say, like, start looking for another job. I'm not going to embarrass you, but start looking, because Pete Golding going to Ole Miss, that is 100% a step down. Bill O'Brien going back to the Patriots, is that really a wildly attractive job at this point in his career? It is what like neither of them did good enough. That was way too much pro talent on that field to perform like they did on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. I want to start on the offensive side of the ball. And if you guys have listened to us for a while, like, you know how critical I've been of Bill O'Brien. But that offense, if you don't have Bryce Young as quarterback last year, that's an 8-4 team. Like, Bryce Young made magic happen when that offense, like, you look at the offensive production, a lot of it was Bryce Young going off script or Jahmyr Gibbs just being a dog. In terms of what Bill O'Brien was calling wasn't working. And if Bryce Young is not your quarterback, that team and that offense is really, really dreadful. And you flip on the defensive side of the ball, Pete Golding, I'm not convinced is a bad coach, but it's inexcusable to see how that defense performed in some of their biggest games. Like Tennessee beat them on the same offensive concepts multiple times, and they just did not have an answer all game. In my mind, when you're an Alabama team where in college football, the margin of error is just so small, it's inexcusable to throw in a dud like that. And you said it best. Like, both the offense and defense had a ton of NFL talent, and both sides of the football just did not make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's honestly it was time. Like, everyone needed a new change. There's a lot of talent on this team. Like, get it. Kind of find a spark, and if that's changed the coaches, dude, that's got to happen. Like, but just needed a spark, needed something to change. It wasn't good enough the last 2 years with Bryce.
And I'm a fan of bringing in Tommy Rees, and in the sense that I think he's going to make this offense a little bit more simple. I think you're going to see a little bit more going back to what Bama has had so much success with in the past, and that's some 2 tight end sets where you're going to be physical along the line of scrimmage and run the football a little bit. And on the defensive side, Kevin Steele is just a known quantity for Nick Saban. We know Nick Saban is one of the best defensive-minded guys in the whole entire country. And I think Kevin Steele is probably just going to simplify this defense a little bit and go let this talented group of playmakers on the defensive side of the ball go be dogs. I think
Saban's familiar with his game. It's like he probably knows what they're getting. It's not going to be a Pete Golding where it's a new kind of system or scheme or whatever. It's Kevin Steele. It's going to be Saban's defense, and it's going to get back to what they did really well for a while.
And under Pete Golding, it just seemed like some of those players were thinking too much. And you saw, like, even in the back end, like, there was just too many safeties on Jalen Hyatt multiple times, like inexcusable type stuff. And these guys weren't necessarily playing. They were kind of thinking. And once you get back to letting a guy like Dallas Turner or Kool-Aid McKinstry just go play football, I think you're going to see a lot better of a product on the defensive side of the ball. So that the first reason is new coordinators. It doesn't even have to do with the personnel. This Alabama team is talented, but new coaches calling the plays, I think, is going to make a massive, massive difference for this Alabama team. And Dill, reason number 2, and this is something we talked about going back to what their bread and butter, and that's controlling the line of scrimmage. I want to start on the offensive line because I really do think this group, Dill, could be one of the best units in the country.
And that's the thing. They really they didn't have a great group last year.
It was
They
bad.
didn't dominate. They didn't dominate like you think they should. Texas, like a team that you don't think of when you think physicality. Like Texas kind of controlled or did their part in terms of controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides, frankly. Alabama, when they were really humming, they were dominant on both sides. They were putting three guys into the NFL draft and one or two really high picks. You haven't really been seeing that in the last few years. I know they did have the tackle go number 2 for sure. And it's not that they haven't had talent,
And
but
they've had guys like Evan Neal. I think it's just a aggregate of that group just in either not picking up blitzes or just struggling to play as a group. But you take a look at what they have on the offensive line coming in this year. J.C. Latham, I think, will be probably a top 5, if not top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Elijah Pritchett is a guy on the other side. I think he can be a phenomenal tackle. Alabama's recruited really well, especially on the offensive line. If these guys can kind of play up to their talent level and get back to being that bruising, that physical team along the line of scrimmage, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's going to mean the world of difference for how this offense performs in 2023 here.
And you got a good mix of young guys who are really
Yes.
talented. You got guys like Seth McLaughlin who you just know are studs and
Yep.
are like almost like what Barrett Jones was for the Lions. He was like a solid, dependable center, good leader, all those kind of things you have. And then obviously you do have those young guys who are stars. And I don't even know that this is really defined depth chart now. I don't know that we know who's going to play. Like, could one of those freshmen sneak in? Could a Caden Proctor work his way in? It's like I think it's going to be up for grabs. You have the talent, but again, it's going to be important. Can they run the football hard like they have in the past? Not like the style that they were running with Jahmyr Gibbs, which was relying on him to hit big plays, but can they beat teams up and be a problem in that way? Again, that's what Nick Saban, I think, wanted to do. He obviously had to adapt to the new way of running offense to an extent, but I imagine with the past couple of years not being as successful, he might want to get back to his roots and start ground and pounding.
That's what I remember Nick Saban having this tension of like whether to embrace that spread him out, go fast offense. And I think that the hire of Tommy Rees, I think that kind of signifies like a little bit of like turning back the clock and saying, we're going to go back to kind of what I know best and what we've done best in the past. And that's be that physical team. And Dale, you mentioned Caden Proctor. That's the third reason we have. And this is true freshman stepping up. That 2023 class was the best class Saban has brought in. I think in his career, but it was definitely in the last decade. And Dale, they have some guys who are going to be true freshmen, 18-year-old kids who I think are going to be significant impact makers in 2023.
Yeah, and frankly, I think that's in some part why the class was so good. It's like a Keon Keeley, a Caden Proctor, Caleb Downs. Like, do these guys actually see a path to really early playing time? Because again, like Alabama, they don't have that returning depth chart that's like, well, these 8 positions on defense are locked up, 9 on offense. It is very much open for, again, these young guys they're awesome. Like, they're like what you said, this was one of the best classes we've ever seen, period, in high school football or college football recruiting. There's going to be a chance for them to play, and if somebody can kind of be a spark and make it happen, I think that could happen.
And there are guys in this class that there's some guys who are top 10, top 25 national prospects in terms of projection, and they might need a year. You take a look at some of the guys that headline that 2023 class. Most of those guys are college football ready. Like Keon Keeley, if you've seen pictures of him, he's going to be a guy that maybe it'll be hard for him to start, but he's gonna have an impact on the football games for Alabama in 2023. Caleb Downs, from what I'm hearing, might start at safety. Like, he's been an absolute dog in spring practice. Caden Proctor, you mentioned, another guy with the body type to start, and whether that's at the tackle position, whether maybe you squeak him into guard and just get him on the field, he's a guy. But the guy that I'm most excited for, Justice Haynes. You win the recruiting battle against the Georgia Bulldogs. He's a guy that I remember doing the recruiting video when he committed. He's a guy that looks like a college football running back, a thick lower half from what you heard in camp. He's an absolute freak. You lose a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Justin Haynes might be the guy that is their RB1, the bell cow guy as a true freshman for Alabama in 2023. And that's something we noted. Getting back to that physical brand of Alabama football, Justice Haynes might need to play a big-time role in that.
Yeah, and that's like true freshman running backs. They feel like they work. It's like you got like it feels like a position that guys come in and play when you're like the running back on a big high school team in America. That means you are by far the best athlete. And
Yep.
again, like a guy like Justin Haynes, there's no reason to not think he'll be ready. And if he can bring more of that power to what Alabama has, I don't think they have anyone on their roster who really runs like that Mark Ingram, Trent Richardson style.
And Justice Haynes is that guy. And hey, you mentioned it best, coming from Buford, Georgia, like that dude. And really, the only thing is like, can you pass protect? Can you hold on to the football? And then everything else is just natural athletic ability. And a guy like Justice Haynes, you see his body. I don't have any question about him picking up a linebacker in pass protection. Moving on to the reason for, and this is probably the biggest thing they need to happen in order to win a national championship. It's the most important position on the field, and it's probably why the national media and a lot of college football fans are so down on this team, is that's the quarterback play. And I think a lot of Alabama fans would agree with this. It's not a great look when Tommy Rees gets to Alabama. You have Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson fighting it out. And then at the end of spring practice, he needs to go get Tyler Buckner, who he wanted to replace with Sam Hartman at Notre Dame, to come in and have some quarterback competition. It's not a great look, but at some point, you kind of just have to trust that you have three quality quarterbacks that are fighting for a starting spot on this team. One of them you feel like is going to step up and win this job and be a good quarterback in 2023.
Yeah, and this maybe when you're talking like reasons why, this is like maybe a reason why or perhaps why not. Because
yes.
Yeah, you definitely don't know what you have, but you got to have somebody play it well. It's like, again, Tyler Buckner was okay at Notre Dame at times. I'm not sure he was always in a great spot with some of their pass catching and just general offensive play. But someone's got to step up and do it. I mean, Ty Simpson's super talented. Jaden Milroe we saw some good things from him. Obviously, haven't seen a ton
Work
yet.
in progress.
But yeah, someone's got to take the bull by the horns, if you will, and just do it. Because otherwise, we're talking about some other parts of this team that are really good. It does kind of all not matter if your quarterback is really.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why we started off with new coordinators and controlling the line of scrimmage. Because what's a quarterback's best friend is a play caller that can make things easy for you, which Bill O'Brien certainly did not. And he made it even hard on a guy like Bryce Young, which is damn hard to do. And then the second is having a good run game. If you can do those things, you can have average quarterback play. Alabama's won national championships with not a Heisman Trophy winner quarterback. They actually used to do it a lot back in the day. And so being able to get back to that old school Alabama, controlling the line of scrimmage, have a coordinator that's going to make it easy on quarterbacks, I think is going to go a long way in stimulating that quarterback play. You're not going to ask your quarterback. I don't think you have a Bryce Young. And that's not even a knock on a guy like Milroe, Ty Simpson, Buckner. None of those guys are Bryce Young. You got to make their jobs easier. And I think that's almost the reason, as opposed to quarterback plays. Can you make the quarterback's job easy for Alabama? And the last one that we're going to touch on, explosive pass catchers. That's another thing. And it's kind of a theme, right? We're going back to what was the recipe for Alabama winning national championships in years past. It was a strong run game. And then lately, it was also explosive pass catchers, right? Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jamison Williams. The list goes on and on. For when you see Alabama teams dominate, they have explosive pass catchers. That's been kind of a thorn in their side this last year. You got to have some of these guys step up.
And that's the thing for really, in my opinion, the last 2 years, aside from Jamison Williams, you really haven't seen much from anyone else.
No.
Cameron Latu is a solid tight end, but that's where I'd kind of leave it. He was solid. It's somebody needs to be that guy to go do what Jamison Williams used to do. And they probably need 2 or 3 of them, frankly, to step up and start making some things happen. Because you're right. When again, we go back to the old school, not even the old school, but when the Lane Kiffin Alabama offenses would have a really good running back and then 3 or 4 wideouts who could all make really big plays. And those teams were so dangerous. No one could stop Alabama when they had Waddle, Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Judy. You had 4 guys you trot out, and there's just nothing anyone could do. They were hitting big plays left and right. They were just a huge problem. Somehow they got to get one of these young guys, I think, to step up. Because at the end of the day, we talk about Ja'Cory Brooks or.
See, I'm not out on Ja'Cory Brooks like you are. It goes back to I just think that offense was so bad last year. I don't think they let guys like Ja'Cory Brooks cook. And there's a couple names that I have. Malik Benson, the JUCO kid. I just keep an eye on him. I'm not going to say I'm entirely familiar with him, but Ja'Cory Brooks has the talent to be that. Jermaine Burton, a former 5-star wide receiver at Georgia, transfers over to Alabama, has the capability to be those guys. I think having a new coordinator, maybe giving us some different route trees to run, I think could help. But I do think that is like the last thing they kind of need to see happen is when you need a big play to happen, like who can you go to? Ja'Cory Brooks, Jermaine Burton. Would it be a younger guy like Jalen Hale, a true freshman? It's got to be somebody that they got to find to just add some dynamic explosiveness in that pass game that just was just non-existent in 2022.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like, I get, like, the offense didn't do Burton or Brooks or any of these guys any real favors last year, obviously, but there is, like, a level of, I mean, someone got to make some plays. And you saw some moments from both those guys, but at the end of the day, I do think it's going to be up to one of the newer faces, one of the guys from the 22 class, one of the guys from the 23 class to kind of ascend into that role where you're like, holy, this guy, they're running like, I mean, Waddle, Judy, Smith, they all like had that same sort of look. They all, someone's got to get back to being that type of guy, I think. And again, not to say it won't be Brooks or Burton or any of the guys who have been here for a little bit, but to me, I feel like it's going to be one of the young guys if it's going to be anyone.
Yeah, we'll see. I do think that's the fifth biggest storyline to kind of keep an eye out on. Now, the last piece of the puzzle in this is the schedule. And if Alabama had a tougher schedule, you go on the road and play a good Tennessee team, you go on the road and play a good LSU team. They have those teams at home, and this is probably the last reason why I think Alabama can at least make the college football playoffs and be a national championship contending team. They got a really nice schedule, right? You obviously play Texas cross-conference, which is hard, but you have them at home. And you look at where you're going on the road. I mean, the only really hard road game, I think, is Texas A&M, which is just a talented team, but I think you should take care of business. And then, obviously, going on the road at Auburn the last week of the season. But those big teams that you're kind of concerned about, Tennessee, LSU, you get both of them at home back-to-back. One is coming off a bye, so you get the bye before the LSU game. This schedule, I think, kind of plays out perfect for Alabama because those teams that there are the must-win games, Texas, LSU, Tennessee, all three of them at home. LSU, probably the biggest of those three games, is following a bye week. This schedule, and it's hard to find easy schedules in the SEC. I think this schedule is very appealing for Nick Saban and this Alabama team.
It's really not too brutal. They don't have anyone besides Tennessee out of the East who's really, really tough. And I'm not sure Tennessee is going to be the Tennessee of last year either. They're losing some guys, and obviously Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt, who are the two primary.
Don't know how you feel about Joe Milton, whether he's good or not.
No, like we'll see about him. But again, LSU's by far, in my opinion, the toughest game, the biggest must-win, if you will. They obviously get them at home, and Texas A&M could be a tough game.
Perfect. I think it's perfect. You get LSU after a bye week, hopefully coming off a big win against Tennessee. Like this schedule, I think really does fit favorably. I would watch out for Texas. Obviously, week 2, it's a talented team. You're going to have a new starting quarterback, so there are some things to kind of keep an eye out on. But Alabama, a very I wouldn't say easy schedule. It's never easy in the SEC, but I think it's as easy as it gets in terms of SEC scheduling. So again, this Alabama team, the national media kind of writing this team off. It's still a extremely talented team. It's still Alabama. Nick Saban's still coaching. They're still here, and they're going to be a team that's contending for a national championship. Again, appreciate you guys for checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And then Bama fans or just college football fans in general, let us know in the comment section how we feel, maybe some other reasons why Alabama could win a national championship in 23. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.